10 random magic cards rated day number 19. TGIF, everybody. Hope your weekend's shaping up to be good. Let's look at Emrakul the Eon's Torn. Wow, what a first card of the day. 15 mana for a 15/15 legendary Eldrazi that cannot be countered. And when you cast it, you take an extra turn after this one. It's always funny. Flying, protection from colored spells, and Annihilator 6. Annihilator 6. When it's put into a graveyard from anywhere, its owner shuffles it into his or her graveyard, from his or her graveyard into his or her library. It's actually, you just shuffle your entire graveyard into your library. I forgot that about this card. I thought it was one of those Eldrazi that just shuffled itself. No, your whole graveyard, buddy. So it's even harder to find, after it dies than the other ones are. And obviously it's got an anti-reanimation clause and all that, but people still love this card for good reason. This card is sick. What do you give a card like Emrakul? What do you give this card? There are still ways of cheating it out, famously. So, oh my goodness. This one I want to throw to you guys. What do you rate this card? I'm still going to rate it. I'm not going to be a coward, but I also want to know what chat, the comments section, the viewers would rate a card like Emrakul out of 10, because you obviously can't go 8. I don't think you can go 8 on this card. Highly specialized, way too much mana, almost a meme, but too good to take seriously. Proven itself to be good too many times for you to not take it seriously, I should say. If I misspoke the first time, I apologize. So I will give Emrakul a 7.9. I say you can't give it an 8, but you can give it a 7.9. By golly. So let's move on to Karn. Wow. It's Karn Scion of Urza. I'm getting the whole storyline today. 4 mana for a legendary Karn Planeswalker with 5 loyalty. +1, reveal the top 2 cards of your library. An opponent chooses one of them, put that card into your hand, exile the other with a silver counter on it. -1, put a card you own with a silver counter on it in exile into your hand. You can also -2 Karn to create a 0/0 colorless Karnstruct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control, aka a Karnstruct. So one of the better modes on this, honestly, is just the -2. It often gets played and immediately -2'd a couple of times in a row. But honestly, too, the -1 has always been pretty, or the +1 has always been pretty okay, too. So just a lot of cool things to like about this card. It's actually surprisingly holding some value. The cheapest you can get it for is the original printing of Dominaria at about $5, but great Commander card here. I'm not really sure if it sees too much play outside of Commander, but it does see some play there. Just all around good card in a vacuum too, that literally any deck can play. So I'm going to have to give Karn a 6.7 to start the day. I think not to start the day, but we've had 2 really good cards. Let's see if we can get a card that is not colorless. Can we do that? 2 good cards, though. This next one's going to be terrible, isn't it? It's even the score. Still raw. This one never saw play. This is 3 blue mana and X for an instant. That costs 3 blue mana less to cast. If an opponent has drawn 4 or more cards this turn, you draw X cards. So my thought still, to this day, when I read this card, is that this is, stroke of genius, but better in most cases. The casting cost is slightly different, but it's still 3 converted mana cost plus X. And so stroke of genius, but mostly better, is really good. It seems fantastic to me. It's a card I want to play. But it never did see play. There were just better options the whole time this was in standard. It's about to rotate out of standard as I record this, and I'm just really sad about it. But it's still, instant speed, X mana draw X. And that will always be at least somewhat relevant, especially, again, in Commander. So I'm always going to like the card. I'm going to give it a 5.31, we'll say. It's not that bad, guys. It ain't that bad. We'll move on to Mirren of Clan Neltoth. Wow. 4 mana, 2 in Golgari colors for a 3/4 legendary human shaman. Whenever another creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. At the beginning of your end step, choose target creature card in your graveyard. If that card's converted mana cost is less than or equal to the number of experience counters you have, return it to the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. So you're always going to get some sort of card advantage out of your yard, but sometimes you'll be able to put the thing onto the table, and once enough dudes die, you'll be able to put it onto the table. I have dabbled in building, brewing, but never actually playing with, in real life, a Commander deck that was basically, black-green aristocrats with this card, but I settled on an actual, Dina Soul Steeper sort of life gain aristocrats build, and I've been liking that one. I've actually got that one built, but this one was sort of drafted all the way up And so I'm familiar with the card, but again, I've never actually resolved it or played against it. But it is a card that I have been really excited to play and just never gotten the chance to. So this has been on my radar for a while, and it's interesting, man. Today we keep getting pretty good Magic cards. So I'm going to give this mostly it for its strength as a commander, but honestly, it could be in the Dina deck in the 99. You know, it very well could be. So not a bad card there either. Doesn't have to be the star of the show. So I'm going to give Marin a... That's a good line. That first line of text is pretty good. Even if you're not sacrificing dudes, like if you're not aristocrats, that's still a pretty good line of text, given, you know, that you have enough creatures out. That you care about creatures enough. So I'm going to give this like a 6.2, like, and not regret it. I think Marin is actually very good, but we'll move on to Morag, Fury of Aquawum. This is 6 mana, 4 and 2 red for a 6/6 legendary Minotaur Warrior. Each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each time it has attacked this turn. It also has landfall. Whenever you landfall, if it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. At the beginning of that combat, untap all your boys. I am more familiar with this art. There was actually multiple like ridiculous combos that never actually took hold in standard with this card, but there were standard combos when it was available to play in that format. But I see it's quite the popular commander here. It's like $9 or $8 really for the cheapest version of this card, and that's because it does look like fun to play in commander. It looks like it's good in landfall decks. It looks like it's good as a landfall commander, a Minotaur commander, because it can do that too. We're just in Minotaur 99s if you're doing that. This could see playing all kinds of stuff in Commander, definitely. Even if you're just putting together a generic red deck that wants to attack, Morag's probably a card you want to play. Probably. So, I don't know. It's a little expensive, even in Commander, but I still feel like I have to give a card like this a solid 6 because, like, once it is on the table, ridiculous. Like, massive, splashy, dumb effects. So, yes, 6. Probably should really be a 5.8, but I'm going 6. Canopy Clause is up next. A single green mana for an instant. A creature loses flying till end of turn. You can flash this back for a green mana. Only ever printed in Judgment. You can get it for 12 cents right now. Because even though it's a single mana to play and flash back, it's just not that good. Losing flying is a fun combat trick, I guess. And like Matthew Mitchell sort of nailed the art. I like that. But it looks like a Magic card. You know? It looks like a Magic card. I got to give it that. But still, like 1.8, I guess. I guess it's kind of Storm Out for 2 mana because you're playing 2 cards. It's not very good. We'll move on to Jukai Preserver, 4 mana from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. This is a 3/3 human druid that's also an enchantment creature. When it ETBs, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. You can also channel it. That's pay 2 green and discard it to put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 creatures you control. Not very good, but, you know, strictly better hill giants or strictly better hill giants for the draft environment. I will give this. Somebody said the other day, you cannot give a creature that can attack and block a 1. They're probably right. I would never do that to this, especially with the insane art that Donato Giancola like nailed here. The more I look at it, the more I'm like, God, Kamigawa was such a beautiful set. Kamigawa was so good, dude. We got to go back there soon. But let's not wait another 20 years this time, is all I'm saying. But I'm going to give this like a 1.7 or something, you know. It's kind of in the same category as that last card in terms of like power level, you know. But we'll move on to Marionette Apprentice. I'm going to be excited about this. We hit Blood Artist the other day. In case you are new to the series, you didn't see that. Hitting Blood Artist is my personal favorite moment in the series so far. Marionette Apprentice is close. 2 mana, 1 and a black for a 1/2 human artificer with Fabricate 1. That means when it ETBs, you can either put a +1/+1 counter on it, or you get a 1/1 colorless artifact creature token. Whenever another creature or artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. Absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts, dude. Like discordant. Banana bread. Like really, really good card that I actually have gotten in, but have not gotten a chance to play with yet. I paid $1.50 for my normal copy of it, so I guess I should have waited. I could have gotten in half price, but who's counting? I've only got 1 copy. I guess I need more. It kind of switches between a couple of commander decks. But again, I still haven't gotten a chance to play it yet. But I'm excited. I am so excited, dude. You don't even have to have that many artifacts in your deck, dude. It's just a redundant effect with like Zulaport, Cutthroat, Blood Artist, and all the other stuff like that. So, Yeah, man, Marionette Apprentice is so good. I don't care what anybody says. I am biased towards effects like this, very obviously, but it's also my channel. And even knowing that I'm biased and knowing that this is too high of a score, I'm going to give this card a 7. Try to stop me through your glass of your phone screen. You can't do it. Marionette Apprentice is really good, dude. It's so good. At least a 7, buddy. Goblin Oriflamme up next. It's like an Orcish Oriflamme, but how it was supposed to originally actually be printed. This is 2 mana, 1 and a red for an enchantment. Attacking creatures you control get +1/+0. So, in case you don't know the story I'm referring to here, quick Magic history lesson. I know a few of you love these. It's one of the reasons you come. Orcish Oriflamme was a card from, Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, the original run of Magic cards. And it's supposed to cost 4 mana. It's supposed to cost 4 mana. But in the original set, I don't know if it was both Alpha and Beta or if it was just Alpha. I think it's just Alpha. Orcish Oriflamme ended up getting misprinted at 2 mana, at this mana cost. And it's literally the exact same card. Attacking creatures you control get +1/+0 on an enchantment. Even at 4 mana, Orcish Oriflamme saw a fair amount of play in like very, very, very early mono red decks. Especially with the Goblins decks and stuff, with Balloon Brigade and Mons Goblin Raiders and Goblin King and like those decks. Loved Orcish Oriflamme, especially if you get your hands on an alpha copy and suddenly all your friends think this card only costs 2 mana to cast. It's not supposed to. But that misprint got fixed moving forward, and people realized that it's not that good, but we're still going to play it. Goblin Oriflamme, on the other hand, this costs what it's supposed to cost. It costs 2 mana. We have power crept enough to this point in Modern Horizons when that first set first came out that we can print Orcish Oriflamme at its original 2 mana casting cost and feel okay with that. So that's the story. And this card is actually okay to this day and playable in Commander, if I say so myself. This ain't half bad, buddy. So I'm going to give this like a 6.1 because this is a fine effect. Battle Cry. An enchantment that just is Battle Cry. Yeah, sure. That's actually pretty good. 6.1's all right. Peregrine Drake. Can we look at Urza's Saga, baby? Peregrine Drake is 5 mana, 4 and a blue for a 2/3 Drake with flying when it comes into play. Untap up to 5 lands. You may know the card costs 5 mana. You untap 5 lands. This is a Cloud of Fairies, but larger and more expensive than Cloud of Fairies. It's a free card. We just looked at Rewind the other day. Urza's Saga had a cycle of these cards, mostly all blue, that untap lands when they come into play. But obviously you have to pay the same mana cost you untap for them. This is pretty good for like storming out. It's good for just, having a bunch of bodies on the table. Cost a card in your hand, but who cares? Untapping mana is really good. Having a 2/3 flyer in play back in the day and untapping all your lands basically meant like, I have a threat now and counter magic up. Do something about that. But Peregrine Drake didn't see a lot of play in competitive environments back in the day, but it does see a fair amount of play in Commander now, mostly because of all the lands it can untap. Now, it could untap Tellurian Academy, back in the day. It could untap Gaia's Cradle back in the day, but there were just better ways to play with those cards. Tinker was a much better deck, and you didn't have to worry about getting to Peregrine Drake or anything like that. You just don't play it, So if the card quality had been slightly lower, then maybe Peregrine Drake would have seen some play. But again, in Commander nowadays, where it's a little more comfortable to pay this kind of mana cost for a card, it does see a fair amount of play. I believe I just saw Charlie, Moist Critical, Penguin Zero on Shuffle Up and Play resolve this card the other day. So it is seeing play in 2024. It makes me feel good. But in any case, I will give Peregrine Drake, just because of the potential bustiality of the card, a 7. Just again, solid 7. I don't think that this is like super broken or anything, but I think it is a card that a lot of people can utilize. I say that much. But in any case, that is all 10 cards from Friday, everybody. Hope your weekend's good, but I will be back for you tomorrow. See you then. Bye.